Welcome to the Frontline Herbalism podcast with your host Nicole Rose from the Solidarity Apothecary. This is your place for all things plants and liberation. Let's get started. Hello, welcome back to the Frontline Herbalism podcast. I'm sorry for ghosting you again. Just the same excuse really of like feeling very overwhelmed with one-to-one work, which I absolutely adore. But yeah, it is definitely a big workload. I've realized I've got like 60 people I'm supporting, which is a little bit wild considering that I only get like 12 hours of childcare a week paid by the state. Like I am eligible for more, but like I want to be with my baby. Do you know what I mean? He's only 2 years old, so he just does like 4 mornings a week. Anyway, just a couple of updates. So I have decided to teach the practical medicine making intensive for the 3rd time this year. I normally only teach it twice, but the last 2 courses have been so amazing, like such awesome humans and so joyful to teach, that I thought, right, let's try and make another one happen. And obviously, you know, it's like a kind of income boost. I've been in a little bit of a pickle financially, not going to lie. I tend to start stuff with this like prototype of like, let's just do it and then see, and we can evaluate and change. And I think I started the Black Flag Herbal Clinic, like the anarchist-free clinic, without thinking, oh, I've always supported people for years unpaid, like it'll be fine, but actually just like completely underestimated the cost of providing kind of like ongoing herbal support to people, and like just, you know, new costs, like the paying like my neighbor to help look after my child so I can do calls in the afternoon, etc., etc. So anyway, there is a Black Flag Herbal Clinic fundraiser at the moment. Haven't put it on Instagram. What am I like? But I've put it on my newsletter list. So basically, my Making Herbal Medicine with Glycerin workshop, which is fucking awesome, FYI, goes into loads of details about what glycerin is, some of the sustainability stuff, its medicinal properties, which herbal constituents do really well in glycerin, and like the 2 methods that I use, like the slow cooker warm method, as I call it, and like cold infusing certain herbs, and which herbs do and don't like that method. Anyway, it's absolutely banging. It's normally 40 quid, and you, with the code Black Flag, all all capital letters, can get it for just £20. And 100% of that money will be ring fenced for the Black Flag Herbal Clinic for all the postage costs and the herb costs and stuff. So yeah, but you know, the Black Flag crew are like absolute bunch of babes, and we've got like a long way to go in terms of like developing systems and doing fundraisers, and we've been talking about like how do we decentralize like care, and you know, the end goal has always been to create like global infrastructure for, you know, like herbal solidarity, especially within the kind of anarchist movement. So watch this space. But yeah, for now, the practical medicine making course, literally like a third. I think a third of the places have gone already from one email to my list. I haven't put it on Instagram yet. So if you want to get on that, I would sign up right away. There are like payment plans available at checkout. I'm not sure about solidarity places for this round, simply because there's shitloads of people who applied last time who I wasn't able to support because it's like a limited numbers course. So I might kind of allocate things to them. Anyway, I'm still trying to figure it out, but you know, email if it's something you're interested in, and we can always add you to that waiting list. You can fill in the form like applying for the solidarity places, and then you'll be kind of like top of the queue for next year, if that makes sense. But yeah, today the podcast episode is actually a reshare of an interview I did on the Sage's Cabin podcast. So if you're into herbal medicine, check it out. It's a podcast run by my friend Rox Madeira, and she's a Scottish Iranian herbalist, been involved in the mobile herbal clinic Calais for like donkey's years, and yeah, is just all round awesome human. I interviewed her on the show a year or so ago, where we talked all about like solidarity medicine making and all the stuff that her workers co-op do up in Scotland. So yeah, please check that out if you're interested, and check out her podcast. And I'm going to be back soon, I promise. I'm going to do an episode all about how I work with people one-to-one and why I make certain decisions and how that's structured, in case you're interested in herbal support. And then, baby, I have planned a whole series all about medicine making. It's going to be fucking epic. I'm going to batch it in advance and then pass it to an amazing friend who helps me with media stuff and just get it fucking scheduled. That's the plan. So yeah, I'm going to be talking all about what makes medicine potent, how to make tinctures, how to make glycerites, how to make infused oils. Yeah, I just thought it's the fucking summer. It's medicine making season. And then after that, yeah, we'll come straight back in with all the kind of trauma content with the Herbalism, PTSD and traumatic stress course, which, by the way, you can join the waitlist for now. And hopefully dotted between now and then, we'll have some more interviews, because I don't know if you've checked out the last interview with Bonnie from Raven's Son Apothecary, but it was absolutely fucking epic. And again, it's on my to-do list to put out some graphics with some of the quotes. Yeah, it literally gave me goosebumps. I still think about it all the time. And yeah, I think if you feel aligned with the Solidarity Apothecary and all the stuff that I'm doing and people in other herbal projects are doing, I think you'll really love that episode a lot. So yeah, so please check that out. All right, I will be back soon. Thanks for listening. Take care.
Hello and welcome to the Sage's Cabin. I'm your host, Rox Madeira. I'm a historical and community herbalist researching medieval and early modern healing traditions, women's ancestral knowledge, and the role of plants in restoration, memory, and belonging after rupture. So I post most of my work on Patreon. I do a lot of stuff in person, like women's circles, foraging walks, and restore your core. So if you want to connect with me, you can check out my website, roxmadeira.com. A lot of my community work happens under Movement in Time, where we support marginalised communities through herbal medicine. So you can check that out at movementintime.com. And then I also do live herbal reenactment with the historical herbalists. And so you can check us out. We do lots of events across the country. And you can see all our events on historicalherbalists.com. If you enjoy the podcast, I really appreciate it if you like, share and subscribe, and considering becoming a patron on Patreon, which is under the Wise Herbal Ways banner. In today's podcast, I'm speaking with Nicole Rose from Solidarity Apothecary. She's somebody who I've been wanting to get on the podcast for a while. She has inspired a lot of the work I do with Movement in Time. She has some really good resources out there, so check her out. It was a really nice to finally chat to her, get her on. I work with her on the Mobile Herbal Clinic Calais. So I hope you really enjoy the podcast and get a lot from it. So yeah, I think I've been wanting to get you on the podcast for ages, so finally, yay, managed to do it. Yeah. To start with, it would be nice if you could introduce yourself in your own words and just say what you do and everything.
Sure. Yes, I'm Nicole. I'm an anarchist and a herbalist, and I live in the southwest of England, very far away from you, unfortunately. But yeah, I run a project called the Solidarity Apothecary. So I focus as a herbalist on supporting people who experience state violence. And that mostly is organizer types experiencing state repression, refugees and people on the move. For example, we're both involved in this project, Mobile Herbal Clinic Calais. Sadly not going there very often now because of the baby, but have been quite heavily involved for a long time. And I get books to prisoners around the world. Wrote a book called The Prisoner's Herbal that is written specifically for people inside. And I also send kind of care packages to people like prisoner families and people going through repression and yeah, all the things like that. And I also have an online course which sort of funds everything, which is about herbalism and PTSD and traumatic stress. So yeah, lots of hats, but the main threads are just supporting people experiencing state violence and different forms of trauma with herbal medicine.
Yeah, I was looking at your site. You're doing so much stuff. I feel like you seem to be doing so much more than you were before as well. Like, how are you managing with your
Oh,
kids?
really? You think?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I did most of the like groundwork for everything before having a baby. So now I'm just kind of in like systems mode. Oh yeah, I also have a clinical practice and have started this anarchist-free clinic called Black Flag Herbal Clinic that I forgot to mention. Yeah, it's a hustle, isn't it? Like I only have like 12 hours of nursery time a week and a bit of help in the afternoons on the odd day. So, and then nap time, bedtime, like a bit of graft then. But yeah, it's definitely a lot. I'd love to pick your brain sometime about how you cope with motherhood and all this stuff. Because how many kids have you got? You've got
3.
Whoa, bloody hell.
Yeah, it's intense. And I think I said to you the last time I spoke to you when I was on your podcast that I found the transition quite difficult, like because I kind of gave up a lot of stuff and then
Mhm.
kind of took a whole break because I was just like, oh my God, children.
Yeah, I cannot imagine. I would love to have more kids one day if I ever met someone else, but like, oh my God, I cannot imagine more than one little human needing me. I think it would
At
blow
least
my
mine are
mind.
now starting to get to the point, well, some of them, so they can do a bit by themselves. I say that, but then they're always like, "Mummy, mummy," constantly. But
Yeah.
yeah, at least they've stopped fighting, so that's good.
God. How old are they?
They are 9, 7, and 4.
Wow. Okay. Aw, big kids.
Yeah, so I think I wanted to unpack kind of all of that stuff that you'd said. So one, I would like to was wondering, how did Solidarity Apothecary kind of come about in the first place? And you've got quite a big presence online and stuff. And I was wondering, like, for kind of any budding herbalists and stuff that are watching, how did you kind of develop the kind of business side of what you're doing?
Ooh. Oh, I've not been asked that before. Um. So yeah, I guess the kind of like brief origin story is studying herbal medicine in prison when I was a prisoner for this animal liberation campaign. Fucking sorry to swear, years ago when I was 21. And then I was a sort of DIY home herbalist, just learning everything, reading everything, listening to podcasts, going to workshops, practicing, putting everything in a jar possible. For a really long time, and I loved that. And then I finally found like a herbal school that like didn't kind of prejudice me because of my background and enabled me to study with them. And then that clinical training just like completely changed my life, and I just wanted to do all the herbal things all the time. But I'd already started supporting people, like different comrades and different groups and stuff, just like informally with herbal medicine. And then I just kept seeing it everywhere. Everyone being burnt out, everyone being depleted, vast amounts of chronic illness. I got really sick myself, and that was like a whole other journey. And I just kind of like wanted to create a structure that could support people who wanted to support their health, but like didn't want to do it in a like really depoliticized way. They wanted to kind of acknowledge like the structural conditions that were contributing to them being sick, whether that was like racism or class or poverty or, you know, sexism or transphobia, like all of these things that affect our bodies. Um, so yeah, so it just kind of like went from there really, of starting to do that like informally and then do my clinical training, and yeah, just like wanting this livelihood from it. But yeah, the business side, I guess, like, I think it's actually good to learn from people who thrive in this world, aka white men. And I listened to a lot of like podcasts from these like business coaches that were like, you know, talking about like digital products and like how do you like build an audience. And I created this online workshop about glycerin, and it was like a test drive, and I made like £1,000 from selling this workshop online with one Instagram post. And then I was like, oh my God, like this is a game changer. Like that would have taken me like so many one-to-one consultations to make that money. So then I decided, right, I'm going to do like a proper online course. And like, yeah, that was just like life changing. And again, like listening to all this like business advice. So like I focused heavily on like building my newsletter, and just like encouraging people to subscribe to that and get updates via that. My books, like The Prisoner's Herbal and Overcoming Burnout, like they were mostly distributed by sort of like anarchist kind of like DIY publishers, but I feel like that built up quite a big support base as well. And then starting my own podcast was like another way of like building affinity with people and interviewing different people. And yeah, and then I've just created a model where like twice a year I have my online course, I build up that waiting list, and then I open it for access a couple of times a year for like 2 weeks, promote it really heavily on social media, and then that sort of raises enough money to keep the apothecary going for like 6 months until the next course launch. So yeah, but then I also make money from my clinical practice. And I don't know if that like stuff is like interesting to people, but like I've spent a long time experimenting of how the hell to make that financially sustainable. And I think lots of herbalists are wildly undercutting themselves and not figuring out like actually how time consuming it is to be a herbalist, to listen to someone and all their health issues, to do research, to put together their herbal recommendations, to make all the medicine, to post it out. So I offer like 5-month packages because I was sort of tired of people reaching out for support, giving them a lot of energy and attention, and then not hearing from them because they didn't want to pay for further herbs because they didn't have any money. So now I offer like payment plans and we work together for like 5 months. And it means that like, you know, someone actually goes from having like crippling endometriosis to actually being able to function and like sleeping well and being in less pain. And like they don't even ask for like refills anymore for their pain blend because their inflammation has like shifted so much. So yeah, so I don't know if I've like gone on some tangents, but like,
No,
yeah.
because I think that's always the hard thing, isn't it? Trying to decide where you kind of position yourself price wise, because it's almost people. I think I said I've told somebody else about this, but like you, nobody ever wants to say how much they charge and anything, and everybody's very, and you don't want to overcharge, and then you don't want to undercharge, so it's very hard to kind of price yourself, I think.
Yeah. And like I'm like a real like systems number person. So I like costing things out and like working it out. And I think like yeah, I think the challenge is like herbalists have such huge hearts and they want to support people, but like I talk about this with like class stuff. It's like the person that has like no money because of, you know, like being on disability benefit or having like a few kids and like hardly any financial support or whatever, giving them a £10 discount on a course that's 120 quid or something isn't gonna help them. Whereas for someone that's like maybe a bit more middle class or like financially resourced, like they can often just afford more than we charge them, if that makes sense. So, and I think people that have the shared values, like they will pay like a higher rate. So like one of my PTSD course is like no one turned away for lack of funds. Like anyone can join that. But like people do pay like the resource rate, you know, and I specify like if you know, own several houses or you have like inherited wealth that you're living from, then like, yeah, you should pay more. And I think like that sliding scale is a bit of a like, not a dance, but it's like challenging to navigate.
Mm.
But ultimately, like, I'm able to like offer a lot of like unpaid support to people because have become comfortable with charging other people more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know that we tried doing like the sliding scale, and I did look at yours because it did. You have specifics about what people because I have found people being quite confused by it and being like, "Well, just tell me how much to charge." And we've
Yeah.
tried to have donation things to send things, but people are very much like kind of, I don't know what to give you. Just tell me what price shall I give you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And I think like people like because capitalism generates like scarcity for everyone, even people that have like millions and millions of pounds will feel like they don't have enough money and will, like make certain decisions, spend like 3 hours researching something to save £10 or whatever. So I think like taking a bit of that emotionality out and being like, this and this, but also just like a lot of people like, like I grew up on like benefits and stuff with a single mum, and like I hated feeling like a charity case. Like I love paying people, like, like the person that helps with my son, like I pay her like way more than like any like, other paid like childminders advertise and stuff for, because I'm like, I want to value your labor.
Yeah.
And so it's like, sorry, I lost my thread then, but like, like I think people like being able to pay like over several months or like a payment plan, or like, because it's not always empowering to like receive something for free, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. I mean, I used to do a lot of massage with people who were like really struggling, and they were kind of through this kind of mental health charity, and they would get it for free, but then they would try and give me money, and I'd be like, I'm getting paid already, and they'd like be sneaking money into my bag and stuff. I'd leave and I'd be like, oh, it's like a tenner or whatever, So that was always nice. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know my dad does taxi driving, and he kind of always said that the people who have got the least amount of money always tipped him more than anybody who got a lot.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. No, without a doubt. And like, I see that all the time in my work as well. And I'm probably like that sort of person too. But I think, I don't know, like if any herbalist is like interested in starting a business, like I do think like you think that you have to learn a lot about like gut health and this, and you do, but actually you really have to learn about like money and people's relationship to money, and like, like what's a fucking pension, and like, do you know what I mean? Like all this stuff that you need to think about as like a self-employed person.
Yeah, all the stuff that nobody wants to think about, and nobody thinks about is what they have to think about, everything around it, marketing and everything as well, I think is a huge thing, like selling yourself and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like, don't get me started on the horrors of social media. Ugh.
Yeah, no. So let's go into a different topic. Let's talk about herbs. Maybe we could. So I started doing your herbs for PTSD and traumatic stress.
Oh, maybe.
I've only listened to the beginning of it, I have to say, but I'm enjoying it. But yeah, I wonder if we could talk about some specific herbs. Just any that you think. I mean, obviously, there's lots of new ones. Obviously, I know that as well. But maybe just some specific things that people could maybe start using or implementing, or like gateway herbs, I guess.
Ooh. So like my course looks at like different categories of like nervines, which are herbs with an affinity for the nervous system. And they're sort of, I guess, the ones that we maybe like take for granted are like the relaxant nervines. So the herbs that don't necessarily make you like relax, as in like sit and put your feet up, but they just reduce the activation of the sympathetic nervous system, which is like our kind of fight or flight, like activated state. And I think people maybe don't realize how much their body is in that state, like frequently. And so anything we can do to kind of like gently tone down that activation is like very valuable. So that's why herbs like chamomile are like so underrated, because everyone just thinks, meh, chamomile, like it's boring. You can like buy it in any coffee shop, but like a really high quality, delicious chamomile tea, like, it will bloody knock me for six. Do you know what I mean? Like, I will want to just like sit down and like not carry on working. But I really think like certain herbs like chamomile or lavender, or if you can access them, like herbs like lemon balm, like having them through the day are just like such amazing resources for the nervous system. They're just like reducing the energy that the body is spending on potentially being triggered or distressed or being, hypervigilant or So I try and, in my care packages, I make like a glycerite, which is like herbal medicine in glycerin, and it's like hawthorn berry, lemon balm, and chamomile. And it's just that little triplet, and you can just like swig it through the day. And I've had people that just have messaged me being like, what on earth is in this? Like, it's just, I've never felt like this before, because it's just got that kind of like calming effect on like the blood vessels and like relieving tension and like soothing like digestive challenges that we get often like that's where people feel their stress. So, it can just like settle down an anxious tummy. So those are like three of my go-tos that I'm like, it's rare that I'd have a client that I wouldn't give them to.
Yeah, I think because I think when I messaged you, I was talking about like I've been in this kind of free state with this kind of with the war in Iran and everything, and it's like something that it's like I feel like I've been waiting to happen the whole of my life, with all like the kind of constant propaganda and everything. And I think the herbs that have helped me that I found helpful has been a combination of like a rose glycerin with oat straw and then some schisandra as well. But if I have them like together, the schisandra just tastes it's so nice when it's by itself. But then when you've had it after something sweet, I'm always like, oh, don't do that because it's so sour.
Yeah.
I think they've helped me quite a lot.
How do you mind sharing more about like how you've been feeling, if you want to, like how that's been?
Oh, I've just been in this kind of like freeze. Yeah, that's basically how I would say. So I haven't been able to like, I've been stuck at like to do anything. Like normally I'm kind of like, there's a lot of things I want to do and I want to do this and that. And then I'm kind of been like, no, I just need to look at the news and I have to see what was going on. And we haven't heard from family. So it's like, well, how are they doing? Thinking about all this kind of stuff. And then one thing, I made some teas, which then I translated into like Persian and into Arabic to send for like Lebanese communities and Arabic and Persian communities, asylum seekers, and that started to make me feel a bit better because I felt like I was actually doing something again, and like, yeah, I think I've just struggled with putting anything online. I think the diaspora has been the difficult thing. I'm kind of watching them and thinking, I don't know, there's so many tensions and stuff, and you don't want to almost like, because I'm only half Iranian, there's this kind of thing of like, oh well, you can't really speak for us and everything, and it's like, who's the real Iranian? And
Oh.
That's been all trying to navigate through. That's been kind of difficult.
Yeah, no, I can't. Yeah, I think like, yeah, like I think the freeze response is like one of the most like interesting kind of like genius, but also like full on nervous system responses of like, it's like, especially when there's like an issue that's like not resolved because it's like systemic, right? So it's like this constant hypervigilance of like, this like terrifying thing might happen, or this might happen, or this might happen, and it's like, what does the body do with that much like overwhelm? And it normally just can't do much, hence the like, shut down kind of. And I think herbs can help shift that state if they can help someone like move into like feeling a bit more safe. Like if they can like forage something and they're like, okay, I'm not in like immediate danger, I can do this and this. But that's why with everything I do, it always has to come back to like the political stuff, because it's like, how do you feel safe if like this is happening? Do you know what I mean? Or people you love are like threatened, and it's like, that's why it can't just be herbalism. It has to be all the other solidarity and the organizing and the resistance and stuff, because you know,
underpins it all, doesn't it? Because it's a kind of the background of everything.
How
my sister's just no, I was just gonna say my sister's just been doing this like international development course, and she's kind of like really into it, but she's come away being like, it's all terrible, everything is so bad. She's like, and now so she's now also in another freeze with like, well, I don't know what to do to like make things, to change things, because right from the very core of it, it's all broken.
I think like, like that balance, like that's why I love the apothecary so much, or like why I love like that one-to-one clinical work so much, is because like I might not be able to stop this or this, whether that's like deforestation for some fucking coal mine in Germany, or, like fucking genocide in Gaza, or like, but I can, for example, have like a one-to-one call with someone who's like, organizing loads of mutual aid for like their family in Gaza, and like is not sleeping very well, and I can get them like loads of lavender oil in the post, which is like infused in olive oil from the West Bank. And then, they can text me and be like, for the first time since October, I've like slept. And it's like, okay, I've not like stopped like this like horrible, like oppressive state, but I've like somehow helped that one person in that like moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's sometimes the thing, isn't it? That you feel like you're not doing enough, but it's like even like just taking it back and just being like, well, if I help like one or two people who then go and help one or two people who help one or two people, it becomes enough.
Yeah. And just seeing these like manifestations like all the time of like, what does this like chronic stress look like, like, and everyone has like a different manifestation of it, of whether it's like loads of gut issues or, loads of panic attacks and nightmares or, like whatever. And it's kind of like, yeah, I feel like with my clinics, especially, like I'm constantly seeing the like manifestations of all these other forms of oppression just show up in someone's body. And it's like the thing that can meet them is like the herbs, if that makes sense. Like I can't take away that person's like trauma or what they've been through on their journey to Europe, for example, but I can, like dress their feet or like wash their feet and, dress their wounds. And like, especially this work in France, it's like, it does feel like a sticking plaster because you are literally sticking plasters on people. But at the same time, it's like, well, if you weren't there, then that person, their wounds might get even more infected and they might get sepsis and they might not make it, or like, do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, yeah, just this balance all the time of like the amazing possibility with herbal medicine and then just like coming up against these limits of just like how screwed up the world is and how like powerless we all feel.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about was the mobile herbal clinic in Calais, and because I know you're not going out there just now, but I wonder if you could talk more about like what it was like to go out there. I've been wanting to go out for ages, but too many kids stop me. Eventually, I will go, but I wonder if you could talk about that, like what kind of things you were kind of seeing and how the herbs were received by the people, but also by like other organizations.
Sure. So I started going out in 2019. And that was like pretty much, I went on the second trip of the project when it was like in its infancy. So I was learning with another herbalist called Melissa, who was like my sort of clinical supervisor. And so I kind of had like an interesting experience of like being one of the people that was trying to set up the systems, like our inventory and our databases and like all of this stuff. And sometimes I think that stuff's like eclipsed my memories of like the actual clinic. But then when I actually talk about it, I get like really emotional because it's like people, like when you're doing stuff in the UK, like to support it, which is like, you couldn't happen without it, like the fundraising and the sourcing and the medicine making. But like, when you're working there, it's like, we call it the vortex. It's like you're in this like really intense world where like, you pull up with the van in a field where people are like living in some sort of encampment and there's just like rubbish everywhere and like human feces because the cops have like taken away the toilets or taken away the hand washing. And like, you're just like meeting people and families and 3-year-old kids that have been like pepper sprayed by the cops that are like crying, or like a guy that's like crawled 2 kilometers to your clinic who's like broken his foot on like a propeller of a boat, or someone else who's just been like beaten half to death by the police that you now have to like take to hospital. Like it's so full on. But then you also have moments where you're just like in the sunshine and people are playing football and you've got like 5 lads with their feet in foot baths because the day before they were all walking like 20 kilometers and their feet hurt. And you're just, putting their feet in hot water with Epsom salts and essential oils. And it's like, it's just like such a weird world of like so many different things going on at once. But like, it's quite intense. Like we have like an external station where we're doing like foot care and like wound dressings, things like this. And then we have like an internal station for people that have like, like upper respiratory infections, like coughs, colds, flu, and like digestive problems. But like all the time we're like constantly scanning to see if we're missing anyone with something serious going on who needs like further like higher care. So, clocking the person who has had blood when they cough for like 3 months, rather than the person that's had a cold for 3 days, like, and that person, maybe has TB and we have to get them to hospital and we have to like advocate with like the racist French doctors and like get them the test they need. Whereas the other 300 people we see, we have to just, give them a cold and flu pack and make sure they know where the hospital is if they get worse, but we can give them like cough syrup and immune tonic and a chest rub, and that will just help them sleep and help prevent their chest infection from getting worse, for example. But yeah, I don't know if you have like specific questions about it, but it's just kind of everything under the sun. Like 1 minute it's like a gunshot wound and the next it's like, you're just playing doctors and nurses with like 3 kids because there's like no one around and you're just like hanging out. So yeah, it's very, different.
Yeah, and I think I just wanted to talk about it because I think it's something that people don't see. And in this kind of climate at the moment where, there's so many people kind of saying all about the migrants coming and them, to get like take our stuff and like, and they get all this stuff when they come here and everything. And it's just kind of making awareness that it's not like they're coming here and they've got like this simple life and they just kind of walk in and they're just like pampered or something, the way that people say it, they get put up in these hotels and things, and they kind of imagine that, I think, in this, that they're having like 5-star treatment and stuff, and it's like, it's not like that. And I think it's just good for people to hear about it a bit more.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like the level of like violence against people is like so extreme, and people like are not, people, they're not making those journeys like from a place of like choice, right? Like it's really like, I can't think of a single person that I've met who hasn't had like some really full on story where, their village has been like massacred, or, they're like on the run because if they get caught, they're going to get like hung or something. Like it's really like, and we don't ask people like where they're from. Like we don't open that box, but we always listen if someone wants to share. And yeah, like it's just kind of like unimaginable like trauma. And yeah, like unfortunately the far right have like started going to France, like the British far right, so that they can, like harass people. And yeah, like there's always been like fascists in France that, like target you. Like my windscreen of my van got like smashed, for example. Managed to like crowdfund to replace that in like an hour, which was nice, and like felt quite defiant of just like, screw you, like we're still going with the clinic, like we're gonna, keep on. But yeah, like it's not, I think people, don't comprehend like, what people have been through. And also like France is like one of their like last places, right? Like, and then they have this dangerous way of getting to the UK over the sea, or like hiding in a lorry, or whereas, you forget like someone has like potentially traveled across a lot of Europe or Northern Africa, or, across the Mediterranean Sea, which is like one of the most dangerous seas in the world in terms of like people that are dying there because of like neglect from, like lifeboats and things, and the navies of the various countries. But like, we're seeing people that have had horrific violence like through the Balkans route, or have lived in camps in like Greece for like several years, or have been forced to like live like underground. Like it's just, by the time someone's got to France, they've just been through sometimes like years and years of being a refugee in different countries and like trying to apply for asylum. And like, it is hard when people like, reproduce like such racist values. And I'm just like, if you could just swap places for 5 minutes, like, so yeah.
So what I was wondering as well was like, how do the other like organizations that are working there, how do they view like the herbs and herbal clinic?
Yeah, do you know what? Like, what I really like about Calais is like, there is like a really good ecology of like solidarity between the different groups. And I feel like people really respect the Mobile Herbal Clinic Calais. But with any herbalist, you'll know that like you're not far away from like prejudice, if that makes sense, of people's opinions about herbal medicine. But like the actual refugees all have like, you know, all coming from places with really strong like plant medicine traditions. So they're like, oh, you know, oh, ginger tea, amazing, hibiscus tea, da da da. And whereas I feel like sometimes there is like more prejudice from countries where there's like a lot of repression against herbalism, including France and Germany. But generally, like most of the medical agencies, like super value the clinic, like the people that distribute food and clothes and stuff, like refer people to us. Like we also support volunteers when we're there. So we'll have like one-to-one calls and sessions with people that are struggling with like burnout and stuff. So yeah, like I think it's like fragile, but it's taken like years, but like there is like really good relationship between groups. And I think people really recognize how the things we distribute are actually like very helpful and like very in demand by the people we serve. So lots of the refugees will go to the other medical projects and be like, you have more of this, you know, like more of the cough syrup, or like they want our muscle rub or like things like this. And they're like, oh, sorry, you know, we don't have it. But like, yeah. So I think like people can see that we really offer things that people really need, because like, you know, okay, you're only there for like 5 to 7 days, but you see that person on the first day who is just super unwell with flu, and by the time you see them like 3 days later after they've had loads of medicine, they're just feeling like so much more resourced. And you know, times that by 300, like you can see that impact like straight away in terms of like how valuable the medicines are. So I think that other medical agencies have a lot of like respect, and because of the herbalism, like I feel like we take the clinical safety almost like more seriously than the other projects, because we know that like we'll have the eyes on us, if that makes sense. So like we always have to like make sure that everyone leaves the clinic with a translated information sheet about where to go to hospital, where they can find like Medicines du Monde or the Red Cross, like where they can get their dressings changed. Like I feel like because of how people perceive herbal medicine, like we have to like constantly be like really shit hot at our stuff, and in a way that's like improved, like improved our practice. And I feel like a lot of like my next steps with the Sold Out Apothecary, like I want to create this like online Frontline Herbalism membership thing that like offers people training in like herbal first aid and like clinical red flags and like, you know, like your scope of practice and like all these things I've learned from like 4-5 years in France. Like just, yeah, what does that look like if you want to start a project in your community, you know? Like, is it okay to just do like some dressings for someone who's like homeless? Like, what do you need to consider? Like, do you need to refer them somewhere? Like, what if they've got sepsis? Like, you know, like all of these like extra things. But yeah, I feel like there's a good like environment there in terms of, you know, and everyone's like in the same boat, if that makes sense. Like everyone has seen like the horrors of that place, and there's like, you know, some sort of like shared experience of this like weird vortex of like everything that's going on. And yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's good. I know that like working in Scotland, sometimes we've had some kind of pushback mostly from people who are from Scotland. I have to say, who are like, we can't work with herbs. What's this kind of witchy stuff? You know, this kind of stuff, and you still get that. And I find that if we get people from other places who are like, because we tend to work with organizations who are already supporting refugees, so we've got that kind of support as well around them. And it tends to be, if we get people, not all the time obviously, but like if we get people from other places, they are more open to us to send herbs into them.
Yeah, I mean, people don't realize like how it's like, I don't know how many generations, like at least 7 generations where people have been like displaced from the land, like, you know, like the, you know, clearances and stuff in Scotland and everything in England and Wales. But it's like, yeah, like it's really, I love like speaking about herbal medicine to people from countries where they haven't had as much like repression. I mean, there's still like a lot of like medical imperialism and stuff against like indigenous traditions, obviously, but like, yeah, people are like so much more, just have that like affinity with plants of like, oh yeah, of course I'll make a tea. Like it's obvious, I'll just make a tea with this thing. And whereas it can be a bit punishing in the UK with like,
I guess it kind of happened here first, didn't it? And then we started exporting it out to everybody else and being like, hey, stay away from the land. You don't want those herbs. Take these chemicals instead.
Yeah. And kill every feminized person. That's a threat. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the other things so you talked about the Black Flag Herbal Clinic. I particularly liked the framing that you've put about caring for yourself. And I wrote down what you actually said, that it's a rebellion against neglect and disposability culture. And I do like that, because I think like quite often that I found people in groups like this tend to, you're fighting for things that are so huge and you really don't kind of look after yourselves. So I wonder if you could just talk more about the Black Flag Clinic in general and why you think it's so important to look after yourself.
Sure. So just the context of the clinic, like I'd been supporting people like unpaid, I guess, doing a lot of like one-to-one support, like different comrades and things, but I wanted to create like a structure that was like separate from the Solidarity Apothecary, or like eventually separate, and that was like more collective, probably because I miss going to Calais and I miss working with people like more intensely. But so I put a call out, got really overwhelmed with the amount of interest, but now we've got like different kind of signal groups and things, so people come to calls that I'm taking with someone so they can like watch and observe. And then no one's been confident yet in terms of where they are in their herbal journey, but ideally we'll get to the place where people feel confident to take a call themselves, and I can like observe and like support and mentor, and other herbalists can get involved and also offer care, so it's not just me, and we can fundraise for it and stuff. But we're mostly supporting people online and then sending them herbal medicines in the post. And, we've had folks from the US who are like resisting ice there. Like, we've had people from like Italy who are doing loads of prisoner support, and like, just like all over the world. And it's just been amazing. But I think probably from my experience in these sort of like movements, or I don't know, some people might call them subcultures, I guess, but like, there is this pattern of like the struggle or the movement or this bigger thing is much more important than me and my needs. And instead of like questioning that kind of binary thinking, we just see like constant patterns of like self-neglect and martyrdom and self-sacrifice. And that often just leads to the same picture of extreme depletion, burnout, chronic illness, like mental health challenges and all sorts of distress. And I think that was like my historic pattern of like, looking after a very kind of like mentally unwell parent, and like, doing loads of like solidarity stuff from a really young age, where I learned that my like self-worth related to like what I did for other people, and the way I earn love is like to care for everyone. So it's kind of like, how on earth do you like unlearn that conditioning? And I'm still bloody trying on that one. But I realized like, it's just like not this binary, and actually, like being able to, prioritize your needs and look after your health. It does mean that you can serve other people like more effectively, because you're more resourced, but also like you intrinsically matter. And I think that's what like, a lot of kind of like organizery types need to just learn, is like they are important too. And, like whether that's like just getting enough sleep or having periods where they're not like hyper adrenalized and in like intense chronic stress, or just, the basics of nutrition. Like I lost a lot of older kind of huge mentors in my life because their patterns of self-neglect and self-sacrifice were so extreme, like, oh, why should I spend money on food when I could donate it to an animal sanctuary, or like something ridiculous. But I feel like I've just, been on such a big learning journey of how do these things connect, and like, like learning from like abolitionist and, like feminist movements that talk about care and talk about mutual aid and talk about, infrastructure for care. And I feel like it's probably a kind of predictable pattern for like a working class femme to be talking about it. But I feel like the direction of my political work has gone in is just screaming from the rooftops about care is really important, like health is really important, like herbal medicine offers us this like amazing way to care for each other in like a decentralized way, you know, where we can like build our own systems up and things. And like, yeah, I feel like Black Flag is just this like tiny little microcosm, and people that seek care from Black Flag, like sometimes they are just excluded from healthcare, like especially the people in the US, like, oh my God, like over there with all this like health insurance stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just they actually just want to talk to someone where they feel affinity with them, where they're not going to experience, you know, like loads of transphobia, or they want to be involved in their own care and not just receive a prescription from a doctor. You know, they want to understand what's going on in their body. They want to make their own medicine. So yeah, like I guess Black Flag is like it's kind of just a big experiment really of like how can we, you know, try and put some of these principles of like mutual aid and solidarity and stuff like into practice so that we can support each other, so that our movements can be stronger. Because if you've been involved in things for a long time, you'll just realize this stuff is like one big burnout train. You know, it's just get involved for a few years, get absolutely wrecked physically and emotionally, abandon things. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, how do we stay involved for the long haul? Because none of these like social problems are like easy fixes, right? Or like short-term things, you know, like look how long people have been like resisting the regime in Iran, you know, like it's like intergenerational now. So it's like we have to take like a long-term perspective on social change, and therefore that means like valuing like people and what they contribute and their health and their needs, and like it doesn't have to compete with the struggle, like it will support it. Does that make sense? I feel like I went on
Yeah. So does this like then fit into, because you've also got support groups, right? Like Horse on the Rose groups.
Oh yeah,
Is it along the same kind of? Are they just kind of in a container, I guess?
Yeah, so those programs are like also kind of experimental. So people access them and they get one-to-one support. So they get that like really focused time on their health needs where it's like really specific and we're looking at their blood tests and blah, blah, blah. And then they also get access to a group space. So they get that like collective care of, you know, group calls with people that like understand what they're going through, and, you know, sweet messages and memes like in between calls and things. As well as like accessing like content so they can learn about herbalism and stuff as well. So yeah, so they're not under that, they're still in the like Solidarity Apothecary framework, if that makes sense, or banner. But yeah, I think
But it's about like kind of care and stuff as well, look after yourself as well.
Yeah, and it's really like treating, you know, like a lot of people that are like, you know, have access those spaces, like, you know, they've like cried in consultations because like no one has ever been so interested in their body, or, you know, they will see a GP and they can talk about one issue for 5 minutes and out the door, and they'll just cry being like, wow, someone cares about me and this is all really connected, and I can't believe someone is just doing this out of solidarity, and that, you know, how can I matter because I've like smashed something up in an arms factory? Like I'm not suffering compared to this person. But actually like it's just kind of like reaffirming that actually, no, you do matter. And like, let's, you know, look at your body and look how you're feeling, and, you know, get you herbs in the post. And yeah, I think that there is like a level of like emotional resourceness to do that kind of like relational stuff. And I feel like when I used to do more prison related things, it was like much more PTSD for me. So I just like, we just hated everyone. Just like, you know, just absolutely hated it. Whereas now, like, yeah, I must have recovered from my health issues because I'm like actually enjoying working with other people, which is a miracle.
Yeah, I think it goes in waves, doesn't it? Because sometimes I'm just like, yes, I need to be with people. Other times I'm like, oh my God, I can't talk to anybody right now.
Yeah. I like
where I'm at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, but when you're going through something traumatic, it actually like you can, you know, like we're all chatting away on the Discord, like on this server for Calais, and it's like I don't have family in Iran. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not on my nervous system, so it's like it's no surprise if like, you know, you're like, I don't feel any connection with these people right now because we can't understand what you're going through. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Everybody's got their own little, you know, traumas and stuff, don't they?
Yeah, of course. But yeah.
Oh, also, thank you for my t-shirt. It's on the video.
Oh, look at that. Lovely stuff.
So if people want to get in contact with you and check out any of your stuff, do you want to give like kind of handles and links and everything?
Sure. So everything is on the solidarity-apothecary.org website. I've got a podcast called the Frontline Herbalism podcast, and the newsletter that I mentioned. And then if anyone is still on social media anymore, then my Instagram is at solidarity.apothecary. Sometimes I'm very active on it, mostly when I'm trying to promote something, and then other times I'm like complete hermit and you won't see me on there for weeks. So best to get me via email if possible.
Great. Yeah. Thank you very much for your time. It's been a nice chatting to you.
Aw, and you?
Stop the video. How do I stop the video?
Then you realise it's not been recording. Thanks so much for listening to the Frontline Herbalism podcast. You can find the transcript, the links, all the resources from the show at solidarity-apothecary.org/podcast.